Hello friends, welcome to another 40k video. Today we look at Vulkan's Talisman of Seven Hammers. What does it mean for the Golden Throne and the Imperium if chaos ever gets too close to that throne? Please like and subscribe, and friends, let's find out. So first, let's establish what the talisman is. The Seven Hammers is a device that looks like a compass and is used for that purpose when first encountered. Used and made by the Primarch son of the Emperor Vulkan, who is also a perpetual, which means he is damn hard to kill. But there is a deep reason for the device. It's a failsafe that can destroy the heart of the Imperium, Terra. But let's go back to when it's first encountered in the novel Old Earth by Nick Kime. That talisman, the one with 7 hammers upon its face, was in the Primarch's hand. It will find a path, Vulkan says. He raised his eyes, and the talisman, the hammers, turned. A compass then, asked Zytos, wondering at the artifact's purpose. One that can navigate this eldritch night, said Abidemi. They later enter the webway. Vulkan says, it is a realm between realms, a place known to few mortals. I took us through the gate beneath Deathfire because I knew it would bring us here, to Alindrak. We roam its edges, its untamed wilderness. To descend into it proper would be unwise, even for me. But the city, it knows, and it guides them when it can, the talisman does. Abidemi, too, found no path inwards, like the talisman, nor did Vulkan, who had returned to scrutinizing his talisman yet again. Later we drop in with Vulkan, who has met up with Malkagador the Sigillite on Terra. He then sees his father, the master of mankind, who reached for the talisman around his neck, and experienced a momentary spike of revelation. The Emperor's voice resounded like a pealing bell or clarion horn, a host of triumphal flutes, of the beating of 1,000 war drums. It was all of it and none of it, and Vulkan staggered as he heard it. My son, Vulkan wept and sank to his knees, head bowed in supplication. Father? And Vulkan approaches the throne. With every step, he brought greater pain upon himself, both physical and mental. As Vulkan relived every one of his many deaths, and still he rose, another step, and then another, and then at last, with the talisman of 7 hammers in his hand and the throne within his reach, Vulkan saw the horror of it, what his father had used him to create, the entire purpose for this resurrection. It came crashing in, and he opened his eyes and remembered back on Nocturne, and he speaks to the Emperor there, as they had when they had first met after the scouring. This is how we met, my son. Do you remember it? Asked the Outlander. Vulkan frowned. Why have you done this, father? I have fashioned something abominable. The Outlander's gaze flicked to the talisman around his son's neck, and then back to Vulkan. Do you recall what I said to you as we sat here and looked out upon these very sands? I said your destiny was a great one, the Outlander went on, and I said that you needed me more than I knew, more than perhaps I would ever know. Vulkan shook his head, a grimace of denial set on his face. But this, how can I do this? You are the earth, my son, its fire and solidity. That is how. And the great flame that it will unleash if the throne fails, if you fail? Vulkan felt a firm hand upon his shoulder and heard the darkening of his father's mood in his words. It will consume the palace and all of Terra. The throne world will burn. To deny it to my brother? No, my son, said the Emperor sadly, the master of mankind standing before him now. Not to deny it to Horus, but to Chaos, and to strike a blow against their forces, the like of which they will never recover from. To win the war, you would sacrifice Terra. If Terra falls and Horus takes it, then we have lost anyway, and all of mankind will suffer. Vulkan looked down at the talisman in his hand and fought the urge to crush it, though he knew it would not yield to even his strength. Such was its creation. "I am sorry, my son," said the Emperor. "I needed to hide it from you, what you had created, and what would be wrought by it in my name. Has it always been within me, the capacity to fashion such a thing? Tell me, my son, why did you destroy your great works and send the others when no one might ever find them? I feared they would be put to ill use, and what they could unleash. Which is why it had to be you. It has ever been within you, Vulkan, and I hoped such a day would not come to pass that I had need of it. I hoped for a great many things," he said sadly. "Your death, your true death, and your resurrection brought forth what you needed to fashion the talisman. All of your pain, the suffering of your legion, it has led up to this point, has led us here." Vulkan met his father's gaze, defiant. "And if I refuse?" "You will not refuse, for you still believe in hope that I will prevail, that Horus will be stopped, and the war will end. But you are also pragmatic, and know that this must be done in case hope fails us in the end." And as before, the light grew around the Emperor, radiating from his skin, and Vulkan shut his eyes, lest he be struck blind. Upon opening them, he was once more before the throne, his father's unswerving gaze upon him, willing him, urging him. Vulkan wrenched the talisman from his neck and reached out with it towards the throne. A small, circular aperture presented itself, and without further hesitation, he pressed the talisman into it. In the moment of connection, Vulkan saw a sea of flame rise up to engulf the Tower of Hegemon, to swallow the Tower of Heroes and all the mighty spires of the palace. It spread, this conflagration within his mind, sweeping across the Pan-Pacific, Ursh, High Brazil, Ind, and Nordafric to every region until nothing remained but ash. The talisman would magnify the power of the throne to unleash cataclysm. Vulkan blinked and it was gone, a part of the great mechanism impossible to remove, and forever waiting. And finally, we look at The End and the Death, Part 1 by Dan Abnett, and add a little more specific detail to this apocalyptic device. Malkador at this point sits on the throne. Vulkan is there, looks and sees. If Malkador perishes in his courageous efforts, or the hated enemy break in to take the inner sanctum, he has a duty to perform, the Talisman of Seven Hammers, a protocol retrofitted into the Golden Throne, can only be activated by Vulkan's command. Once initiated, it will destroy the throne and the sanctum and all the treasures of the palace entirely. Vulkan, the maker, the shaper, the demiurge craftsman, will be the unmaker of all the Emperor has built, splitting the palace and the world open before Horus can plunder it. If anyone claims the throne back for Malkador, it will be Vulkan's father on his return. No one else. Horus will never get the chance. I find it interesting that it doesn't just have to be the Emperor on the throne, and then it fails. That will mean the end of the Imperium. It could be also Malkador. Perhaps Magnus if he'd not turned traitor. And of course, Vulkan is currently MIA. And so this device is actually not in play in the 40k verse at the moment. Though all that could change when GW perhaps bring back another Primarch. And just now a little commentary on some of the things that have been raised in the early part of the video. How would this hurt Chaos if Vulkan was around to trigger it? Let's say in M40 or M30. It would remove the biggest threat to Chaos, the Anathema, the master of mankind, the Emperor. The Emperor, speaking of him, says that what Vulkan does will strike a blow from which they will never recover, they being Chaos. It will, at the time of the Siege of Terra, remove Horus and many of the Primarchs from the battlefield. It will tear the heart from the Imperium, ending any help the Emperor can offer those away from Terra, remove the Astronomicon and safe warp travel, and will leave behind the husk of an empire, with the Brute, the Lion, probably Rus, and some for Chaos left on the other side. And the Imperium will likely collapse, humanity and the Primarchs and remaining loyalist Space Marines and Sisters of Battle, Astra Militarum, etc., will fight violently for a time. But I think without the Emperor, and with the gods of chaos still around, and the eternity they have, the last of humanity will fall. So it denies chaos some assets, but don't they still win overall? What will be left of humanity if the Emperor is not around? And of course, psychos will still be born, so I just don't get that part. Besides, the gods of chaos need humanity to a degree for their part in the great game, for the energy it gives them and sustains them. So won't this just lead to more humans being corrupted? So I think the Emperor feels wrong to me in the larger point, in the larger war. Though perhaps it's something he sees with his prescience. Who knows, just some fun speculation. So what do you think? Is the Emperor right? What damage will the end of Terra cause chaos? Could the Imperium still rise? Let's chat about it. Comment down below.